It's time for NEC Women's Basketball on the Run. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ralph Ventre. Let's talk some NEC women's hoops. Let's get right to business. We'll check out where we stand. And at this point, folks, I think it's fair to call it a pursuit of perfection. Robert Morris is more than halfway there. The Colonials won back-to-back games again last week, moving to 10-0 in Northeast Conference play. They are one win away from matching last year's program record start, and they are 8 wins away from a perfect 18-0. 4 teams have done that over the course of NEC history. We'll talk more about those teams and put Robert Morris's success in a historical context later on in the show. Now, let's not forget about Mount St. Mary's either. The Mountaineers, a 2-win week, 7-2 in second place by virtue of win percentage. Kendall Breesy is back. That's the transfer from George Washington. She's returned to the starting lineup, 11 points in each of her last 2 starts. She's averaging more than 10 per game this season. Breesy was one of 3 Mountaineers to score in double figures this past Monday, joining Michaela Harrison and forward Rebecca Lee. Lee with the double-double the last time out to sink Sacred Heart and move the Mount to 7-2. St. Francis U also in the mix near the top of the standings. The Red Flash have won 2 in a row. They are 8-3. It seems like there is a different lead character every time out for SFU, whether it's Carson Swager, Haley Thomas, Sam Sabino, the rookie Katie Detweiler. The Red Flash have been finding ways to get it done. 8 wins to only 3 losses. And let's quickly shout out LIU. They've also won 2 in a row. They're climbing up the standings at 4-5, and they have a great opportunity this week. They'll take on Merrimack and Mount St. Mary's, 2 teams who are ranked above them in the Northeast Conference standings. So the first week of February is in the books. The conference race continues to heat up. Robert Morris continues to roll, but still plenty of more basketball to play. And that's where we stand. She gets buckets. And that would be Brandy Thomas. The 2019 NEC Rookie of the Year is surging during her sophomore season at LIU. Thomas, a product of the legendary Christ the King High School in New York City, she has scored at least 15 points in each of her last 4 games. She scored 24 points against first-place Robert Morris during that stretch. And considering the way that Robert Morris plays defense, that's a rather impressive feat. Not too many go for 20-plus against the Colonials. Thomas was even better than that her last time out. She scored 29 in a win over Merrimack. She has reached double figures in 8 of 9 Northeast Conference games. She's averaging 15 points per outing this season. That's the 5th highest in the Northeast Conference. She's also amongst the top 15 NEC leaders in field goal percentage. She is sophomore Brandy Thomas from NYC, a sophomore for LIU. She gets buckets. Calling the Twitter timeout this week from the tweet sheet, we pull up one from FDU head coach Angelica Steck-Jamilo, and Coach Ange had this to say following a 69-61 setback to Mount St. Mary's. the first-year head coach keeping things in perspective for her young Knights. And not to mention, it's great to see Jamilo connecting with the FDU alumni. The alumni and community outreach since she has taken over the job has been noticeable. She is reinstilling excitement into that once very proud program. And as for using that loss to Mount St. Mary's as a learning tool, that worked out pretty well. FDU bounced back with a 62-61 win over Wagner. They had to deliver in crunch time, and Rachel Niles got it done with the game-winning shot. The defense held. The Knights snapped a 3-game slide, and they have matched last year's NEC win total. FDU 5-5 in league play. They were 5-13 in 18 games last season, and there's no doubt the outlook is bright in Hackensack for the FDU Knights and their first-year head coach. That's amazing. Yes, Robert Morris's recent run is quite amazing, and it's even more remarkable when you dig a little deeper. Now, I already took my Twitter time out, but I am going back to the tweet sheet to take a look at this one from NEC play-by-play announcer Craig D'Amico, and this tweet puts Robert Morris's dominance in a historical perspective. 4 teams have gone 18-0 in Northeast Conference play. 2 of those teams had a margin of victory of more than 18 points per game. Robert Morris, as Craig points out, is defeating NEC opponents by nearly 21 points per outing. They are outperforming those other unbeaten teams, but still 8 games to go. In addition to the large margin of victory, the Colonials are putting up some eye-popping defensive numbers during this 10-game stretch. They've allowed only 60 points once in conference play. In fact, they've held the opponent under 45 points in 4 of their last 7 Northeast Conference victories. Stats amazing. And now it's time to check in with the man behind that Robert Morris tweet. Time to kick it out to the corner where Craig D'Amico is waiting with his weekly hot takes.
Thanks, Ralph. Welcome back to Craig's Corner here on NEC Women's Basketball on the Run. It's time now for my most impressive thing. And my most impressive thing this week is actually the most impressive thing from, well, the last 3.5 years, and that's the incredible career of St. Francis Brooklyn's Jade Johnson. Last week, after we had already filmed our segment, news broke that Terriers senior Jade Johnson had concluded her historic career on Remsen Street due to a season-ending foot injury. Now, first of all, tip of the cap to St. Francis Brooklyn for honoring Jade with this public mention, because oftentimes, not that teams intentionally tried to hide anything, but when it comes to injuries, they just don't go out of their way to overtly advertise them. But with all Jade has accomplished, she certainly deserves this proper send-off. 1,394 career points, 5th most in program history. She set a program record with 598 points a year ago with 100 three-pointers made. She was a 2-time Battle of Brooklyn MVP and had a 3.8 cum GPA in the classroom. Now, Johnson has left the team, returned to Australia, where her medical team is taking over her rehab, preparing her for the pros. So congratulations to Jade on an impressive career, and best of luck in the next chapter. As for the Terriers, in their first game after the announcement, they pulled off an upset over Sacred Heart, 71-70 on Saturday afternoon at the Pope Center, led by Allie Lassen, who netted a career-high 30 points. This week, we have a pair of games on NEC TV. First, Bryant will be hosting Central Connecticut State, 1 p.m. over on ESPN+. And for me, I'll be in Fairfield, Connecticut for a high noon tip, Robert Morris against Sacred Heart over on ESPN3. Sacred Heart has battled injuries all year long. They've had a short bench. They've had to mix and match lineups. And quite frankly, it was working. They had fourth quarter comebacks, photo finishes, and they were 5-3 in their first 8 conference games until this current 2-game slide. Nikki Johnson, who had a very impressive non-conference season, is back after missing time with a hand injury. Although Adrian Haygood, who's second in the conference in scoring, she's been battling injuries all year long. She went down late in the game against Mount St. Mary's on Monday night, didn't return, so her status for Saturday is still up in the air. Now, on the other side, Robert Morris, they're dominating the league like Billie Eilish was dominating the Grammys. Not just winning, but winning big. They won by 38 and 30 points against Bryan and Central Connecticut State last weekend. The Colonials have a top 25 scoring defense. They're top 15 in the nation in turnovers forced, and they have the 7th best turnover rate in the country. They only allow 50 points per game against conference opponents, and they've held NEC foes under 50 3 of the last 5 times out. The Robert Morris defense makes you feel less comfortable than if you're on a Kyle Shanahan coach team with the fourth quarter lead in the Super Bowl. Now, Robert Morris, with a win on Saturday, they could go to 11-0 for a second straight season and cement their spot in the 2020 NEC tournament. Robert Morris beat Sacred Heart 73-43 back on January 20th. Although Sacred Heart did beat the Colonials the last time Robert Morris came to town and visited the Pitt Center late last year. Well, that'll just about do it for me. I will see you in Fairfield, Connecticut coming up Saturday on ESPN3, and we'll see you back here as always next week on NEC Women's Basketball on the Run.
Okay, thanks, Craig. I'll certainly be looking forward to that Robert Morris Sacred Heart battle on Saturday, high noon, live on ESPN3. Another exciting slate of NEC women's basketball awaits. 5 games Saturday, another 5 on Monday. We are rolling as we approach the stretch run in conference play. For NEC Front Row, I'm Ralph Ventre. This was NEC Women's Basketball on the Run. I'll see you again next week.